This pattern is Egan's Iron Lotus, and this is quickly becoming one of my all-time favorite patterns. I just love this thing. I think it's a trout catching machine. I'm going to start off with a size 14 nymph hook and a 3/32 tungsten bead, and to that I'm going to add just a little bit of additional weight to it. So I'm going to do maybe 8 to 10 wraps of lead underneath. I'm just going to move that up and have that help secure the bead head, smooth out that end, make sure that's good and pushed up. Now for the first piece of thread I'm going to use an olive dun, and I'm going to use 8/0 here. You can use, if you want to cover a little bit quicker, you can use 70 or even 140 if you're tying bigger sizes, but I'm just going to start wrapping that and securing in that lead, and also start to build up the thread body a bit. And I tie this in a couple of different colors. This is in the, as mentioned, in that olive dun, but I also tie this in a gray color as well. The one substitute that I make with this is in the tail material, and I really like mallard flank, so I use that in a lot of my tails. So I'm going to take maybe 5 strands or so of mallard flank, and I want about a hook shank length worth of tail material there. So just get that good and tied in right on top. Bring that back up to behind the lead and secure that in. For the ribbing on this fly, I just use a thicker thread, and you can use a heavier sewing thread, an upholstery thread, or I like to use this Euro thread, which comes braided and it's just thicker in body. And so I just take a piece of white Euro thread and tie that in to the same tie-in point just behind the lead where that ends. And now I'm just going to start to take that all the way back to make sure that it's good and secure, and then I'll start to smooth it out and also cover up any of that white of the thread. So just making that tapered body. Nice cigar shape. I don't need to get too heavy in the thorax because I'm going to be putting some additional material there. And once I'm satisfied with that, then I can just take a handful of wraps and start to segment off the body. Bring it up to the thorax and then tie it in. Just make sure that's good and secure. Now, I tie this in a two-step process. I'm going to whip finish this off now and remove the thread. And when I tie these, I'll typically tie them in batches. So I'll do 3 or 4 of them that are at this phase, and then because you want that thread to be secure on there. If you'd fish it as it is, this thread will start to move once you catch a couple of fish on it. And so I coat it back, and you can use your favorite head cement or whatever you want to use to give it a little bit more protection. But I'm just going to use Sally Hansen's Hard as Nails and just put a layer of nail polish on that, just so that it gets nice and hard. And if it looks a little bit bubbly, that's gonna eventually soak in. You can come back through with your bobbin and smooth that out. The other thing that it does is it gives it kind of that epoxy look And if the threads looks like they've disappeared, they'll come back once this dries, and it'll look blended into the body. So I will let that sit then until it's dry, and then I'll come back in and tie in the wing case and the thorax. So now that the nail polish has had a chance to dry and to cure, I'll come back to this fly. I've changed out my thread, and now I'm using an A-dot red. This is going to act as a hot spot on the head of the fly. So I'll just get that started, snip off the excess here. And this fly has a flashback. Normally when I tie in flashback, I'll use a black, but it has an olive kind of sparkle to it. With this fly, I like to use just a straight flat black piece of back material. So just straight black with this instead of the flashier stuff that I normally use. I'm going to cut off an 1/8 inch section and get that ready to tie in. Set that right on top of the fly, give it a turn to make sure I've got it right where I want it, and now I'll start making the width of the thorax, and I want to do about a bead head, maybe just a fraction bigger for the thorax section. Alright, so I'll advance it about to the middle of the thorax, and now I'm going to add in the legs, or dub the thorax in this. I'm going to use a little some of my wax here, my dubbing wax, just to get it on the line, and I'm going to use a hair's mask. So I put the wax on the line so it sticks as I start to dub this on. So I'll take some hair's mask here. And instead of cutting it, I just pull it off. It's just personal preference. I think it doesn't give me those sharp edges. So I take a pinch of that hair's mask, and I'll just start dubbing this on the line or on the thread. Let's get a nice even. This thorax will take a beating, so I try to make sure I have plenty of it, and I'm going to wrap it continually on top of itself. And when I'm happy with that, push some of that down, so I want it to have a nice flat back. Pull that up. Take a wrap on top, maybe two. Pull that back. Try to pull everything back here, and this is just going to be a hot spot, this red thread. Not much, but maybe just enough to get an extra strike or two. So I'll trim that off. I'll pull the flash back up. Take that off the top. Then I come through and I really pick this out. I want this to be nice and leggy, and I do it before I add any additional head cement, so that if it does bind any of the fibers, it's binding it as a leg. That nice and picked out there. Then I'll come back through with some of my Loon head cement and just put a drop or two, or a thin coating on top. Put that trap on, and I can take my my pick. Now it's going to settle slightly, but I'll take that and just spread it down the back. Now let that set up and dry, and it's ready to fish. One of my again, quickly becoming one of my favorite patterns. It's a very effective fly, and that is my version of Egan's Iron Lotus.